Welcome to the MOOC lecture on the topic Globalization, Cultural Identity and Cultural Conflict. We will present here a philosophical basis for globalization. Globalization is a phenomenon that has been going on for the last few thousands of years. It is a cumulative phenomenon. What we are seeing at present is but the latest phase of a continuum. Swami Vivekananda says that there have been many watershed events in the past too that brought the different parts of the world with its various people and various geographies closer together. He says that when each such watershed event occurred, India came forward and disseminated her invaluable spiritual treasure to the world. Thus, India has the traditional role earmarked for her, disseminating spiritual knowledge to the whole world, enabling deeper and yet deeper levels of globalization. Historians generally classify the globalization phenomenon into at least three distinct phases: the ancient globalization phase or the proto-globalization period, the medieval globalization phase, and the modern globalization phase, also called as the post-globalization period. The ancient phase refers to the period from prehistory right up to the Industrial Revolution. The medieval phase refers to the period from the onset of the Industrial Revolution till the onset of the telecom and the IT revolution. The present period refers to the post-globalization age. This is the accepted Western conception that is prevalent in the academia. Swami Vivekananda contends that the rather long period from prehistory till the Industrial Revolution further has many distinct phases, each following a standard template. He says that at regular intervals, some military power would end up conquering huge parts of the inhabited world. Political consolidation would invariably open up channels for smooth movement of people and trade, and in the wake of such easy movement, India would send forth her children with the message of Vedanta. Swami Vivekananda contends that this dissemination of Vedanta was vital for enabling stability and harmony in the wake of each new phase of globalization. We will now see how and why this is so. From time immemorial, man has lived in communities defined by geographical boundaries. Most of these communities arose on river banks. Thus, the cradles of civilization have all been on the banks of the major river systems. Group life or community life tends to awaken the higher nature of man. When a community reaches a critical period, there arises among them a man or a woman of exceptional power. This special person leaves an indelible mark on the community. This person's utterances go on to guide that community's destiny and fortunes for centuries to come. Our study of human history substantiates this thesis. Over a period of time, the entire body of thought, practices, and traditions arising from this extraordinary person congeals into a distinct entity called a religion. This entity called religion addresses everything that concerns man within the context of the particular community. Religion will answer the deepest questions that have always arisen within the heart of man, such as who am I, why am I here, what is the purpose of my life, how should I live in this world, what happens to me after death, why am I what I am, etc. Since religion affects every aspect of a person's life, albeit in the constricted context of his or her geographical confines, religion confers a person's primary identity within the immediate society. This has always been the case with human civilization, right from the most ancient times till the present modern age. Against the background of this phenomenon, we have one more important phenomenon that occurs in human society. People belonging to one religion move to another religion for various reasons. Adverse climatic conditions and adverse geographical developments have been the major causes in the first half of the proto-globalization period. Rivers would get dried up, mountains would crumble down and render the land useless for hunting, agriculture, etc. These used to be the common reasons for mass migrations. Later on, political reasons became more important. Leaders of growing communities would conquer richer lands for the use of their subjects. Whatever be the cause for the mass migrations, in most cases, it would so happen that the incoming population would clash with an existing population. If the migrating population could get hold of empty areas of land, there would be no issue at all. The fault lines of globalization would be exposed whenever two communities clashed for using common resources. Living and working together with people belonging to a different religion has always been problematic. Food habits, rituals associated with various stages of a person's life, belief systems, value systems, standards of morality and ethics, mythological beliefs, everything changes from religion to religion. In fact, if all these things become the same between two religions, they will no longer remain two distinct religions. They will come to be seen as one and the same religion. It is these so-called minor details that differ from one religion to another. So, when two populations interact, these differences get highlighted. All through recorded human history, we have faced these situations. The crux of this interaction is the overpowering of one religion by the other. This overpowering of religion brings about abrupt changes in the personal identity of individuals of the overpowered religion. This phenomenon has devastating effects in the long run. The most important problem concerning globalization is then this: when people of different religions interact, how can their religions be kept intact? This has been the dynamic of all inter-civilizational interactions throughout human history. With every watershed event and the consequent transformation in society, this dynamic gets more active, more variegated, and more intense. But the basic framework remains the same. When people of different geographical regions interact with one another, we can reduce the essential interaction to that of religious identities. Hence, in order to control inter-civilizational interactions, we will need to understand the dynamics that operate in religion. What happens when people of different religions interact, and why should people of different religions interact? Economic reasons are the most important for people of various religions to interact. If economies could be made locally self-sufficient, there would most probably be no reason for large-scale interactions between people of different geographical regions. In fact, during the proto-globalization period, such indeed was the case. Economies were indeed local. When population increases, the need for exchange of essential commodities also increases. Then there are reasons arising from natural geographical calamities. If we observe historical developments closely, we can't fail to notice that bond events constitute watershed moments in human history. Periodic cataclysmic natural events have occurred in spans of 1500 years, which have molded human history. While natural calamities concerning climate and geography, with its attendant implications on food sources and ease of habitation, governed mass exoduses in the proto-globalization period, that is, from prehistory till about 1000 AD. Thereafter, mass exoduses were mainly caused by political reasons. Kings and rulers wanted more and more lands and more people under their suzerainty. Greek and Roman conquests fall under this category. Even the Islamic and the Mongol conquests were mainly due to political reasons. The onset of industrial revolution set in motion an unprecedented economic activity. Mass movement facilities were opened up for the common man. Urbanization set in. Transformations in means of livelihood forced huge numbers of people to transplant themselves to faraway lands. The political powers too actively pursued colonization in order to support their individual countries' needs for raw materials and markets. Geographical boundaries have been rendered meaningless by the rapid technological developments of the present age. Today, it is possible for anyone living anywhere to be contributing to the economy of any region anywhere on earth. There is no longer any such thing as a local economy. Everything in economics has become global. The internet and penetration of IT into every economic activity has rendered this situation possible. Where exactly is the pain point regarding globalization? A person takes birth in a definite place in this world and grows up receiving certain definite cultural inputs. The self-identity that a person develops is intimately linked to his geography and therefore its attendant culture and religion. Today, as a grown person, as a responsible adult, he or she has to participate in economic activity. And today's economic activity respects no particular culture or religion. So, a schism is created between the personal life of a modern man and his social life. I belong to a particular religion. Invariably, I will have to work among people belonging to various other religions. While every religion specifies how people of a particular religion should behave among themselves, no religion specifies how one should behave with people of other religions. Further, man derives his self-identity from his religion. So, if social interactions touch his religion, his self-identity gets affected. Consequently, in order to protect his self-identity, he reacts adversely in his social interactions. Or worse, he withdraws from society, turning into a sociopath. Evolutionary instincts implant a rudimentary fanaticism in every human being. Since self-identity is an evolved construct in a person, there will always be a tremendous force working behind safeguarding it at all times in the person's lifetime. So, interactions between people of different religions will always awaken this ancient evolutionary force of survival. Whenever in history we have seen mass interactions between people of different religions, we have seen the ugly face of this evolutionary force called fanaticism raise its head in society. Fundamentalism and terrorism are therefore ancient survival instincts kicking in as a reaction to the pressures people feel on their self-identity. India is the Galapagos Islands in religion. Within the small confines of its geographical boundaries, the people of India have learned to live together with innumerable religious affiliations for an inordinately long period of time. We need to study in greater depth the dynamics of how these people have learned to not get threatened about losing their self-identity even while sharing common resources among themselves. If we can codify this dynamic, it can serve as a timely template for the entire modern world. And such a thing is most urgently needed by our world today. India has a very long history of accommodating people of various religious affiliations in its society. The very first technique it developed in enabling this was to completely separate religion from the state. The sacred and the secular were separated. The rules that governed the sacred were different from the rules that governed the secular activities of man. The former were called Shriti, while the latter was called Smriti. The sacred further had two divisions. One set of people took care of hardcore spirituality. They were the sannyasins. They were avarna and hence were beyond the pale of society in every respect. Another set of people handled the ritualistic duties in society. And the set of people who looked after the secular activities had limited or no control over these two sets of people. So the so-called caste system, which has been demonized to no end in modern times, has been the bulwark of ensuring social harmony in India since ancient times. This arrangement broke down when the Muslims came to live in India. Prior to the Muslim influx, any number of people from other religions had entered India and had been assimilated into the Indian society entirely due to the flexibility offered by the Varna Jati system, commonly known as the caste system. When the Muslims came to India, the Indian society welcomed them, knowing that it could assimilate them into the Kshatriya Varna, for they seemed inherited with Kshatriya qualities. The Muslims, however, refused to be a part of the social system in India, preferring to remain socially aloof. Further, They were very forceful in converting the resident people of this land into their own religion. The advantage of the caste system was just that. It allowed people to live in social harmony while adhering to their own personal religious systems. In Islam, however, the sacred and the secular were fused into one. There was only one set of rules for both, the Sharia. Later, when the Christians arrived in large numbers, India saw that they too had the same problem in their body politic. There was a fusion of the sacred and the secular duties and activities in their society too. For the Roman Catholic Church was indeed a fusion of the sacred and the secular. The second tool that India had developed to handle variety in society was a theological one. The Hindu believes that there are two distinct categories of human beings. The masses belong to one category. Once every 1500 years, a human being appears who clearly does not belong to the general category of human beings. He or she clearly only appears to be human, but is vastly different in every respect. Recall what we said in the beginning of our lecture. When a group of people live in an organized manner for a sufficient period of time, there arises a person among them who manifests immense power over others. He or she brings revelations from beyond the range of reason. This special type of human being is called Rishi in the Vedic period, and the same person is called Avatara in the later period in India. The Avatara is therefore the essential history maker in the Hindu worldview. He or she initiates the watershed events in human history. There is a distinct worldview among the people at a given point of time in history. The majority of people in a community subscribe to common views regarding the origin and destiny of this world, regarding the origin, nature and destiny of man, and regarding God. The very nature of this world, both socially and psychologically, is such that when a community lives a few generations based on a particular worldview, cumulative social developments and insights into the workings of this world and the workings of man bring about a change in the worldview itself. In other words, no worldview is sustainable permanently. When society reaches a stage where a dissonance is seen between our view of the world, of man, and of God, where our ideas of these three are no longer congruous and compatible with one another, that is when this special type of human being arises amongst us. The Avatara then initiates processes which harmonize our views of man, world, and God, thereby opening up a new worldview for us. Then the masses subscribe to this renewed worldview, and in the course of a few centuries, further social developments and further insights into the workings of world and man create a new imbalance in the worldview, necessitating the rebirth of this special human being yet again. Thus the cycle goes on. Every such worldview is called dharma. Every such imbalance in the worldview is called dharma glani. And every new impetus given by the Avatara is called dharma sthapana. This cycle is the Hindu view of world history. Thus, when we study the Upanishads, we find innumerable worldviews presented therein. Later on, in the Bhagavad Gita too, Sri Krishna, whom we revere as one of the most influential avatars, enumerates more than one worldview. The three gunas worldview, the upturned Ashwatra tree worldview, the Yajna worldview, etc. In the Upanishads, we get many more such worldviews, such as the two birds or the Dvasuparna worldview, the seven foods or the Saptanna Brahmana worldview, the oblatory person or the Purusha worldview, etc. In India, we learned never to render one worldview compatible with other worldviews. Each is independent and was valid for that particular period of time in human history. Now, we have a new worldview and we need to move on. It is meaningless to hold on to an ancient worldview when things have changed. Not just meaningless, but positively harmful for society and the individual. In India, we see one great advantage. The people living in India, people who identified with the land and its religion, have had a continuous existence. This continuation in their existence enabled them to have a consolidated record of the periodic teachings of their various avatars. And this consolidated record got perpetuated down the generations. This led to an amazing discovery in the collective consciousness of the Indian people. They were able to codify the rules of conduct for the avatara too. While every human society everywhere in the world has codified rules of conduct for the common man, Nowhere else do we find this unique set of rules meant for the avatara. But many other human societies too have had their fair share of the divine inspired man or woman at some point in their history. That is one of the reasons we mentioned before that India is the Galapagos Islands of religion. Just as Darwin was able to study the graded evolution of physical features in the birds of the Galapagos Islands only because those birds had a continuous existence over a considerable period of time, so also in India we have had this advantage in religion. The main function of the avatara is to bring harmony between the conception of the world, of man and of God, thereby restoring the lost balance in the worldview for the people among whom he takes birth. He then enumerates the lifestyles and mental attitudes that can enable man to evolve spiritually while living in the society. Thus, the discoveries of every avatara will fall under two categories. One set of discoveries will concern the eternal nature of man, world and God. The other set of discoveries will concern man's daily life, attitudes and activities that will enable man to realize his true nature and achieve life fulfillment. If we have only one avatara in our history, we will end up with one set each of these discoveries and they will get set in stone, never to be altered ever again, even when times have changed. This is what we see in Buddhism, Christianity and Islam. Since India has had a continuous supply of avatars, we have been able to discern that the first set of discoveries are always the same, no matter which avatara it is that makes the discoveries. It seems as though every time the avatara reinvents the wheel. It is the second set of discoveries that changes every time. Thus in India, we have come to understand that each religion has an eternal aspect to it and a temporal aspect to it. For what follows in the wake of each avatara is a different religion. Hence, different religions have been able to live harmoniously within India, all of them even using the generic name of Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism. So the code of conduct for an avatara is that he or she has to spell out that what he or she has discovered and has taught is the same precious jewels but in a new casket. The avatara is duty bound to do this. It is forbidden for an avatara to claim uniqueness or monopoly over his message. In the Upanishads, we find repeated utterances from the avatars such as Yosa Vasau Purusha Sohamasmi, Iti Shushruma Dhiranam Yenas Tadvicha Chakshire, Tadapyesha Shloko Bhavati, Etad Vaitat, etc. If there is something in the present avatara's teachings which clashes with what has been taught previously by some other avatara, it is the duty of the present avatara to harmonize his own words with the previous message. If that is not done, later followers will end up confused and will be at one another's throat as we see at present. Until the advent of Buddha, this tradition was maintained in India. With the advent of Buddha, this tradition got broken. Even though Buddha specifically uttered these kinds of linking statements, the later Buddhists claimed uniqueness. The reasons could mainly have been political, as Swami Vivekananda observes. But the Hindus responded to this bizarre development by later Buddhists by developing an elaborate theology of the divine avatara and situating the Buddha in the 9th place in the Vishnu Purana. By doing that, Hinduism was able to harmonize what had developed into a so-called different religion called Buddhism. Today, if Buddhism is recognized as a religion separate from Hinduism, it is purely due to political reasons. There is absolutely no theological support for such a stand. But Buddhist influence on the Jewish religion had a similar impact, and while Jesus should have been recognized as one more prophet or avatara in a long succession of prophets, Christ's followers claimed uniqueness. Further on, this Buddhist Christian influence rubbed off when Muhammad gave his message. And with Islam, the ideas of uniqueness got really hard-lined. It is to be particularly noted that Buddha, Christ and Muhammad had repeatedly proclaimed that they came to fulfill and not destroy. The Hindu theology further claims that there is only one soul that reincarnates itself again and again as the avatara. Thus, the same person who was born as Yajnavalkya in one age came down as Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, Chaitanya in different ages and in different regions of the world. It is not a different person each time. It is something like a dog's master who wears a different set of clothes on different occasions, but a dog would not fail to recognize its master no matter what his attire or the perfume that he wears. Similarly, when the faculty of spiritual perception opens up in a person, he or she will be able to clearly see this fact. The world urgently needs to learn these two techniques from the Hindus and provide a stable foundation for the unprecedented globalization that has already set in due to political, technological, and economic reasons. It is imperative that personal religion and collective secular life are dissociated as early as possible in all societies. Stiff resistance to this will come from the clergy or the priest class in every religion. The cause being economic, the solution too will have to be economic. The clergy or the priest class will need to be rehabilitated in suitable productive economic activities. Every school curriculum must include the Hindu theology of the Avatara as delineated above, so that children grow up with the idea that there will be many avatars, many gods, all relevant to different dispositions of people, but all referring to the same single source. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, we have the teacher and the student praying as follows: Shanno Mitra Sham Varunaha, Shanno Bhavatvar Yaman, Shanna Indro Brihaspatihi, Shanno Vishnururukramaha, Namo Brahmane, Namaste Vayo, Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi, Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami. Mitra, Varuna, Aryaman were gods of people belonging to the Middle East region. The teacher would get students from there too. Indra, Brihaspati and Vishnu were gods of the people belonging to India. When the students sat together in the class, everyone would pray to everyone's gods. Every student learned to respect everyone else's god in this manner. Then the beauty of the Hindu discovery comes. Every student asserts that whatever be the name of the god, it belongs to one god. And this one god has two aspects, Brahman and Shakti. As Brahman, there can be no variation or differentiation, and the god of my choice is the Shakti aspect of the one god. Although I know that all gods are the same, I shall still worship the one god in a form that I love most. We end by quoting Swami Vivekananda. He said, "We want to lead mankind to the place where there is neither the Vedas, nor the Bible, nor the Quran. Yet, this has to be done by harmonizing the Vedas, the Bible, and the Quran. Mankind ought to be taught that religions are but the varied expressions of the religion, which is oneness, so that each may choose that path that suits him best."